Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, as we get going here on this Thanksgiving Day, I at least wanted to show you a picture of what I look like. I know a lot of you who watch our content probably never see me, don't know what I look like, but there I am. And I just want to take a moment on Thanksgiving morning here just to thank you. And my thanks is for the fact that you give my work purpose. And I enjoy what I do very much, and I get immense satisfaction out of doing it. And without an audience, I just don't know what it would be like to do what I do. So I want to thank you for watching. And with that, let's dig right into this because we are adding a lot more to this map in the coming days. This is our last 7 days of total accumulated precipitation. And when we look back over the last week, we've had pretty heavy band of snow that moved through this area. We'll take a look at that in a second. But also down here over our kind of south and mid-south region, some very heavy rainfall from a few systems that have come through. Also with the rain that has come through California and the snow at the high elevations, we have most certainly ended our fire season, which is something to be very thankful for. As we press forward in this forecast, this will be a map that I think will be changing a lot over the next 72 hours. So this is a map that just looks back over the last 72 hours, seeing where we had our greatest snowfall. And certainly there in parts of Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, stretching all the way up through parts of western Iowa and into Minnesota and northern Wisconsin, and even the UP of Michigan here, really piling up the snow. Remember, we had kind of identified this corridor as having the heaviest snow, and I said broadly 3 to 6 inches, but locally some heavier amounts, and we certainly got those heavier amounts, especially back in parts of Colorado there. But notice out west, too. Look at the snowfall amounts we've added up here with the Sierra Nevada getting its first major dump of snow. Some places up there picking up 4 feet of snow at some of the highest elevations. Well, our all hazards weather map points to another very wintry end of our week, and so we're looking here at widespread winter weather advisories, winter storm watches, and winter storm warnings that are in place. That's that pink color. So we need to dig into this and figure out what is going to be changing here in the near term, and we'll see how much snow we're going to be adding. So this is it. This is out from early this morning here from the National Digital Forecast Database, and our next storm system as it does emerge out of the Intermountain West. We'll take a little bit more of a northerly track, as you can see. Heaviest snowfall amounts coming in there into parts of Idaho, northern 2/3 of Wyoming, But then look at the snow in Montana, the Dakotas, and Minnesota. Some locations adding here another foot, maybe 15 inches of snow in some places. Who's missing out on this? Well, I bet folks right in through here are glad that they're not going to be seeing more added onto this. And with the northern trajectory of this storm system, we're not going to be bringing too much snow into the central and eastern parts of the Corn Belt. And we're going to see what this all means for precipitation down here over the southeast. But still piling up in parts of California as well. Let's take a quick look at what we're expecting to see over the next 3 days or so here in California. So some of our highest elevations may be able to grab another foot as this comes through, but certainly things are much calmer than they were yesterday in Northern California. All right. So Midwest numbers, let's just take another quick look at them here, kind of a zoomed in version. This again from the National Digital Forecast Database. You can kind of find your region if you're watching this in the northern plains here in the Midwest and see what we're anticipating adding here. All right. So what's the system look like? Well, this is a snapshot early this morning. System number 1 that was producing incredibly strong winds along with that snow and very heavy rain. In fact, several severe wind reports and a few tornado reports the day previous down as you get farther into the lower Mississippi River Valley. Well, that system is now pushed on off to the northeast. The low pressure center is off the shore, but we do see some tight pressure gradient, very windy morning for us here in the northeast and snow in the interior. But the next mess is coming right over here. So our main low pressure system is here off the coast of California, but there's a huge surge of moisture out ahead of this. And watch as this evolves over the next day or so. So let's just walk you through Friday. So this is Friday morning, getting into Friday afternoon and Friday evening. You see the pressure gradient tightening right back up. High pressure on this side. But look at the moisture advection that will be coming on these strong southerly winds right into this area, filling this one in with plenty of moisture to produce another powerful low pressure system. So this is Saturday afternoon. Let's just stop it right here. On Saturday afternoon, the center of our low will be tucked away very much close to like Sioux Falls area, just a little bit to the west. And on the back side, this will be a strong enough wind here that we could be potentially reaching toward blizzard conditions. Remember, blizzard conditions, 35 mile an hour sustained wind, reduced visibility is less than a quarter of a mile. And you got to have snow in there, and that's got to all last for at least 3 hours. If that is forecast, they will issue a blizzard warning, and we can see the heavy snow is piling up from Montana, Wyoming, but certainly the Dakotas, northwestern parts of Nebraska, and then getting here into the northern half of Minnesota. To the south, quite a bit of heavy rain. This will be one of those wind-driven rain events coming out of the south, and we could be seeing some stronger thunderstorms down here over parts of the Mid-South, getting into Arkansas, eastern Texas, and eastern Oklahoma. Look at how quickly, as I get into Saturday evening, in the overnight hours, the dry slot pushes through here. And as that happens, again, maybe the potential for some stronger thunderstorms down here to the south, but the system then dips just barely here over western Iowa, and on the backside, a lot of snow with this one. Now, what's interesting about the trajectory of this after we get to Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, and Sunday evening is that as it just moves straight east, on the back side of it, a lot of cold air comes in on these strong northerly winds, and we could be getting some snow piling up here in parts of Iowa, at least a quick shot of it on the back side as this comes through here. You did see in the previous map, we're not talking about major snowfall totals in Iowa, but snow with some stronger winds, and that's going to mix into Illinois for your Sunday evening. That's what this is valid for, Sunday evening, as this system curls up into the northeast, finally bringing a shot at cold air and some mixed in snow here into parts of the eastern Corn Belt, the Ohio River Valley, and then even in here into the Appalachian Mountains. Well, as that gets out, we have a pretty strong atmospheric river event, as we often call them. Basically, the jet stream pushing quite a bit of moisture into California again, and that's going to be the main feature to get us through the middle part of next week. For a lot of us in the midsection of the country, after the system exits on Monday, we get a couple of days here where things are relatively calm. Some light snow moving through parts of the Canadian prairies. Other than that, the pattern does try to relax through the middle part of the week. But once I get you out here a week from now, so this is getting out here to next Thursday evening, there's some model differences in the overall pattern, and I want to take a look at those by staring at the ensembles rather than at an operational run. So let's get to that here in the next few moments. First of all, with the next system coming on Sunday morning, we call this again the Pineapple Express. You can see it starting right here off of the Hawaiian Islands. And the push of moisture, its trajectory straight into Southern California. It's a relatively narrow band of high precipitable water, but it is going to be one that's going to be putting down quite a bit of precipitation in California to start our new week. And take a look at this. This is valid Sunday morning. By the time I get you out to Wednesday afternoon, we can see that that push of moisture kind of moves a little bit farther to the south. And why I think that the end of next week might be a little different than the operational models are advertising is for two reasons. Looking up at the jet stream level winds, we do see this trough coming in here. This is the polar branch of the jet stream, but the subtropical branch of the jet stream is coming in just like this. And that could just lead toward a wetter week 2. But what I want you to know is that before that gets here, day 4 through 10. So what is that? That's going to start us off on Sunday and try to get us through a pretty big chunk of next week. The main focus on the wetter than average conditions will be here, and then with the system that's leaving, that's plaguing the middle part of the country now. You do notice that in both the European on the right and the GFS that's over here on the left, they have a very similar pattern that we could get a stretch of days here in the midsection of the country, getting down into the south and southeast, that things could calm down a little bit. All that we've got going here in the European is possibly a clipper system that kind of sneaks through, coming out of the Canadian prairies, maybe bringing a little bit more snowfall to Minnesota, Wisconsin, and parts of Michigan. But we got to take a look at what these temperatures are doing, because even though the precipitation patterns are honed in pretty nicely here, not only for days 4 through 10, but also for week 2 on the whole. So this is, again, just looking at your week 2 precipitation anomalies. I want to talk about what this pattern's doing to kind of make this happen and what those temperatures are going to do in response. So we're only going to look at the European model to start, but I'm going to show you some of the big differences between our major modeling centers in a few moments. So I think this story's played out pretty well. Deep trough here off the west coast. We're going to watch that one just break through the Intermountain West and emerge here right on over the top of this ridge initially, producing a long track low that just sneaks across the United States as we work through our weekend. So there that one goes, okay? So that's going to bring in cooler weather to start your week along the East Coast, but look at the ridge that's rebuilding in the midsection of the country. Now, the reason why this ridge is building here is because we've pushed cold air east. We've tucked cold air up here between Greenland and the Hudson Bay. And we have this next trough that is a bit more, well, it's positive tilt on it, but sticking way back out here into the open Pacific. Now it's going to be on the south side of this that we're funneling in all that moisture. So it's, remember, the flow just comes around it just like this and comes into this area. And that just stays out there. Look at this. This is Tuesday into Wednesday. And just remember, when you're coming off of a ridge, which is here, into a trough, that's convergence in the upper levels of the atmosphere. That means this is that drier midweek pattern I talked to you about, while the east hangs on to a cooler bias. And we could get a few just little clippers that kind of sneak into this area, kind of run around this broader trough. But take a look at what this is doing beyond that. Next Thursday, Friday, into Saturday, we have this deeper trough that pushes into the west. That's why you saw the whole of the west coast on the wetter pattern in week 2. And this is going to really, like I often say, it kind of relaxes overall and brings in some warmer conditions in the midsection of the United States and eventually over toward the east. But the major difference maker in the long run will be this. So notice as we get out to December 9th, this system right here moves through. That's why I do believe that as we get out past next week, we could see a wetter than average conditions in through here. We just have a weak trough moving through. But notice the big bowling ball of a trough that's right now getting set up here. And that's where the models start to break down with a little bit of a difference. And I'm going to show you that in just a few moments here. Okay. Here's the other thing complicating this temperature pattern. As we talked about in yesterday's long-range outlook, the perturbation, the change, the disturbance in the upper levels of the troposphere, getting into the base of the stratosphere, is happening right here. This would be what we call our sudden stratospheric warming event. And what's difficult for me to pin down is its strength. But what I do notice is that it will be breaking off 2 pieces of the polar vortex as we move into the month of, here of December. And it kind of looks as though I'm starting to draw a little bit of Mickey Mouse here. I don't know. So we'll see if this is what actually happens. But this is certainly a different break off of the polar vortex than we saw with the last big upset, which happened at the end of January of 2019, where the 2 lobes of the polar vortex that broke off, one was here and another was there. So this could allow us to get through the mid part of the month on a more relaxed temperature pattern, but we have to watch out for this swinging around by the time we get past the middle of the month, maybe giving us a much different end of the month. So let's see what this all does to temperatures as we get toward the end of this video. First, GFS ensemble on the left, European on the right, very similar picture over the next 5 days. So we have the 2 big features happening, the new trough coming in the west, the old trough exiting the east, and the warm up happening in the midsection of the country. Remember, at this particular time, though, that trough slides out like this and the ridge builds in, and that's why in the 6 to 10 day time period, we have the warmth returning to the midsection of the country in both models. They are definitely in lockstep up to this point. But here's where they go different. Now, if you're in this section of the country, like, hey, I see the same thing. But if you're watching this up here in the north, in the Canadian prairies, entirely different setup. And the reason why things look so different is because of this. Looking out here at about December 12th, the European model is favoring a much deeper trough just south of the Aleutian Islands. This is the Aleutian Low. And that allows for much warmer conditions to push into this area. The GFS has a weaker trough here and a more established trough in the midsection of the country. So none of this warmth is able to get much beyond about the tip of that arrow. So we keep the cooler weather tucked away into this region. Now we're out here. What is this? This is a 13 to 14 day forecast. And at that particular time scale, it's very difficult to, tell you what is going to be there exactly. I'll tell you this. A couple of things that might be messing with this flow pattern could be, of course, the polar vortex. There is a typhoon. I don't think it's going to recurve and cause problems at this point over near the Philippine Islands. But I just think we're going to have to watch this over the weekend to see how the models evolve. That's about the only solution I have to you overall. And that's because I'm not seeing much of a change in the tropics at all. The Indian Ocean Dipole event is still our most dominant signal. It's got the MJO stuck in phase 1. The Southern Oscillation Index at -9 makes it look like there's a bit of an El Nino, but there's not. The ocean temperatures here in the El Nino region are still, I wrote blah, because they're just not strong cold or strong warm. And what hasn't changed? Well, the PDO is still very warm, and the Chukchi sea ice is still slowly filling in. So until this breaks, I don't have much of a reason to make a call on a longer term pattern change. And what I'm talking about here, a lot of rising motion here over this part of Africa, sinking motion here over this part of Indonesia and in Australia. That's not changing. And this is very much El Nino-like in the upper level flow pattern here across the open Pacific Ocean. In terms of where we're kind of suppressing, not El Nino like. This is more La Nina like in this particular part of the open ocean where we're suppressing that motion. In El Nino years, this is all rising in through here. So it's funny, our surface winds behaving El Nino like, the upper level winds not. So it's a very, very complicated pattern dominated by the IOD. So what does it all mean? Well, let's just get globally first. We're still seeing the momentum transport doing something like this. You can kind of just see it all out of the tropics running north on those lines I drew. Very drying through here. And what we need to check in on is South America, because over the next 15 days, both models are kind of honed in on this region showing up wetter than average, dry in Argentina and dry north of it. You can see kind of this split, dry north, wet middle, dry south. And a lot of that has to do with a couple of deeper troughs that are coming in. Remember, our troughs come in from the south here, and we're kind of just enhancing the convergence right here in the middle. So regions that have been very dry, so I'm talking about Mato Grosso do Sul, Minas Gerais, Paraná, they're going to be getting quite a bit of heavy rainfall over the next 15 days. All right. Well, the northern branches of our, or the northern parts of our South American growing zones are going to be relatively dry. Hey, have a great Thanksgiving. Please be safe if you're out traveling. I'll talk to you again next week. And until then, just keep a close eye on that radar. Got a couple of active systems moving through the country. Thank you.